Imagine being so incredibly rich that your mere presence bankrupts a country, not by stealing from them, not by invading them with an army, but by giving them too much money. This sounds like an impossible paradox. How can giving people free money destroy their entire lives? Welcome to the story of Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire, and officially the richest human being to ever walk the earth. In the year 1324, he went on a historic road trip that accidentally broke the global economy, and in the process he taught the world a terrifying lesson about the brutal mechanics of inflation. It's a lesson that took down empires, and it's the exact same lesson that modern governments and central banks are deliberately ignoring today. To truly comprehend how rich he was, you have to completely reset your brain and forget about modern billionaires. When we think of wealth today, we think of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, but their wealth is entirely abstract. They have stock options, they have corporate shares, they have digital numbers on a screen that fluctuate based on market sentiment. Mansa Musa didn't have shares. He had physical, tangible, heavy gold, mountains and mountains of it. In the 14th century, the Mali Empire was the economic powerhouse of the entire world. Because of their strategic location in Africa, they controlled half the world's gold supply, along with massive sprawling salt mines, which at the time was incredibly valuable because it was the only way to safely preserve food. And because Mali was an absolute monarchy, every single ounce of that gold belonged to one man. He was effectively a walking central bank. But Mansa Musa had a serious problem. He was an incredibly devout man. As a deeply practicing Muslim, he was required to complete the Hajj, a sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. The problem was that Mecca was over 4,000 miles away. Between his capital city and his destination lay the massive Sahara Desert, the deadliest stretch of sand on earth. Now you don't just pack a backpack and walk across the Sahara Desert, especially not if you are the king. You travel in absolute style. Mansa Musa didn't just assemble a party, he effectively mobilized a moving city. Historians recorded that his caravan consisted of a staggering 60,000 men, that is the population of a stadium, marching in unison across the scorching desert. Among them were 12,000 servants, all dressed in the finest Persian silk. But here is the craziest part. Each of those 12,000 servants carried a 4-pound staff of solid gold, and that wasn't even the treasury. Behind the servants walked a massive train of 80 to 100 desert camel. Each camel was heavily loaded down with 300 pounds of pure gold. If you do the math, he was dragging billions of dollars across the brutal sand dunes. Supplying this moving city was a complete logistical nightmare. They had to build temporary mosques every single Friday wherever they stopped. They had to carry enough water to keep 60,000 humans alive. But against all odds, they made it. After months of grueling travel, this literal river of gold arrived at the gates of Cairo, Egypt. In 1324, Cairo was the shining jewel of the entire medieval world. It was the ultimate financial hub. The people of Cairo were used to wealth, but when Mansa Musa's army marched in, the entire city was absolutely stunned. They had never seen anything like this. Mansa Musa was a generous king. He believed his wealth was a blessing that was meant to be shared. So he decided to start handing it out. And he didn't just tip well, he flooded the streets with wealth. He bought expensive local souvenirs, paying 10 times the asking price. He tipped random street merchants with handfuls of pure gold dust. He tossed glowing gold coins to common beggars on the street. He donated massive, ungodly sums to local mosques and charities. He was the ultimate historical philanthropist. He wanted to leave a legacy of kindness, and at first it was a party. The people of Cairo thought they won the ultimate financial lottery. Everyone suddenly had pockets full of gold. The poorest peasants were suddenly rich, but then a slow, invisible disaster began to terrifyingly unfold. It is the core, unavoidable mechanism of absolute inflation. When everyone suddenly has a lot of gold, the gold itself fundamentally stops being special. Think about it from a merchant's perspective. You sell bread for a living. Suddenly every single person walking in has a pocket full of gold. You realize very quickly that your customers are absolutely loaded. So what do? You quietly raise your prices. And it wasn't just the bakers. The butchers violently raised their prices. The clothing merchants doubled their rates. The price of housing skyrocketed overnight. Because there was so much gold competing for the exact same goods, the actual value of the gold plummeted. Suddenly the gold in people's pockets couldn't actually buy them anything. The citizens of Cairo were holding gold, but they were literally starving because the price of bread had inflated. Mansa Musa had accidentally flooded the market. He increased the money supply so fast that the purchasing power completely collapsed. He single-handedly crashed the economy of the entire Middle East. It was one of the first documented cases of massive hyperinflation in human history, and the misery didn't just last a week. Chroniclers recorded that the Cairo economy remained utterly broken for 10 years. Millions of innocent people suffered deeply, not because of a bloody war, and not because of a plague, but simply because they got free money. Now, fast forward to our world today. When modern governments face a financial crisis, what do they always do? They panic and fire up the printers. They hand out free stimulus checks. They implement quantitative easing. They bail out failing corporate banks. They flood the economy with newly printed cash, desperately hoping to fix the problem. The politicians stand on podiums and promise that giving away free money will will save the working class. But just like Mansa Musa's gold, creating new money out of thin air doesn't create any real tangible wealth. You can't print more houses. You can't print more food. You can't print more energy. When you double the money in the system, you just have the value of the money, already sitting in your bank account. It is a hidden tax on the poor. The working class feels rich for a moment when the stimulus check finally hits, but a year later they are struggling to afford basic groceries and rent. The core mechanism hasn't changed in 700 years. Mansa Musa was a very smart man. He eventually realized the terrible mistake he had accidentally made. Months later, on his journey back from Mecca, he passed through Cairo once again. He saw the ruined, starving economy. He saw people holding useless gold. To his credit, he tried to fix it. In an incredible twist of irony, the richest man in human history went to the major bankers of Cairo and took out massive personal loans. He borrowed back all the gold, agreeing to pay massive interest rates, just to remove the gold from circulation. He essentially acted as a central bank, trying to perform quantitative tightening. But the catastrophic damage was already done. The next time you hear a modern politician promise to solve a problem by printing money, remember the generous emperor of Mali. Remember the ruined markets of Cairo, because having too much money isn't a blessing. If you don't understand inflation, it is an absolute curse.